So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get started with our next session. I'd like to make just a few announcements. Please remember that there are baskets on your table. If you have questions you'd like to be addressed by our panel a little bit later, just write them down, put them into the basket, and we will collect them after this session. Someone's name tag was stuck to me because I was giving them a hug. So, Will, I got your name tag. Okay, so watch the hugs next time, okay? So check your shoulders and just to make sure you don't have anybody else's name tag. We're mentioning at the break that we're so blessed that we have so many people here, and we want to thank you for coming. We're partnering with Anchor Ministerial Fellowship, and we wanted to mention that Bud and Donna Gillam are here, and I see Donna's still in the lobby, but Bud Gillam is the founder of Anchor Ministerial in Canada. The comment was made in jest that we don't honor him anymore. I thought, oh, yes, we do. So we're going to get Bud to stand, and he was the first one to bring Anchor into Canada so many years ago. Let's give him a hand. And our brother and sister are involved in leading Mission Possible in Haiti and doing wonderful things. The Lord's using them, so we're excited that here they are still years later being a part of what we do. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ann Gillies and her son David, and we'll get David to introduce himself when they come. So come on up, folks. And let's give them a hand, please, Ann and David Gillies. Are you coming up now, Dave? Your mom says no. Okay, well.
Thank you. He doesn't want to be up here with me. Isn't it good when God restores? And I just wanted to update you. Like 3 years ago, it was pretty difficult times, especially for a year. But since that time, my book got published, David read the manuscript, God convicted his heart about a lot of things. And so it's really awesome to have my eldest son involved in this ministry with me. And my youngest son, who had just kind of come back to the Lord, is just moving ahead leaps and bounds. So God is good in the middle of everything. Amen. So I'm going to talk to you right now about, there we are, has become trendy to be trans. And before I do that, there's something I want to also do. We did put a couple of those Operation Rise forms on each table, if you're interested. Also, let me give you a website. It's pretty easy. So you can go on and get more information and get those PowerPoint slides that I presented, so you actually have the information. It's called Operation Rise Canada at gmail.com. And if you don't get all that right now, come and see me afterwards. So I'm going to talk about the issue of gender dysphoria, more specifically, rapid onset gender dysphoria. We do have an issue with transgender trending. And Laura Lynn talked a little bit about that. It's not working. Oh, turn it on. There we go. And I'm going to go into more specifics. So I've spent many years researching gender and sexuality, right from my undergrad days at Emmanuel Bible College, so that's not very far from here. And I come with a deep respect for humanity, just so that you're aware. This is not about beating people up. It's about exposing the lies and the agenda. And I have a profound concern for what's being taught to our children. So the definition of gender dysphoria, if you can read that, do I have the definition here? There we are. This is the definition for rapid onset gender dysphoria. I'm not going to just go into gender dysphoria, that's in my book, but rapid onset affects young girls, mostly 86% of these teens are girls who are now coming out as this, as trans. And they're between about 13 and 24 years old with no previous history of any kind of gender dysphoria. So that's a concern for sure. So characterized by the sudden desire to transition. Dr. James Cantor, who identifies as gay himself from Toronto, he's the director of the Toronto Sexuality Center. He in January spoke out against some of the stuff that's being taught and some of the studies that have come out pro-transitioning. And he says that results compiled from many medical studies show that the majority of kids stop transitioning, or stop feeling, transgendered past puberty. So that's with the gender dysphoric people, the children. That's not new news, and Laura Lynn kind of alluded to that, but 97% of boys and 88% of girls who have childhood gender dysphoria, they actually self-rectify to their biological identity by puberty. So they didn't need hormones, they didn't need any of that. Many of them ended up being either gay or lesbian, but they still had their biological identity. So with rapid onset gender dysphoria, the children's identities are being transformed. And we need to understand that childhood identity, sexual identities, or any kind of identity, it's not fixed, but developing. And you can remember throughout your life that you had different thoughts and different ideas and different things that come along. And I like the video where it says, well, I don't like it, but where Laura Lynn, the teacher, was reading that some girls like to catch snakes. I loved catching snakes. I loved climbing trees. If I had been, indoctrinated in the education system right now, if I was, 7, 8, or 9, I would have been told that I might be a boy in a girl's form. And that would have changed my life dramatically, unfortunately. So I did some of these stats last night. So 2010, and I said this morning, 0.014% were trans. 2017, 0.7% of the population is now trans. See how it's going up? That's adults. In the UK, and Laura Lynn alluded to this too, there has been a 4,400% increase of rapid onset gender dysphoria. So these young girls coming to clinics wanting to transition. So that's just in a decade, 4,000% increase. And so when people say, well, there's no indoctrination in this curriculum or in these schools, oh yes, there is. We are changing children's brains from kindergarten. We are changing, when you change your thoughts, the neural pathways begin to transform and change in your brain. So it is so strategically important what we teach our children at those elementary levels, the earliest grades. So what wires together in the brain fires together. If we're teaching sexuality, which this kind of sexuality that should never be taught in kindergarten. These are kids that just need to be kids. They don't need to deal with all this stuff. It will change their brain. But where activities are known, where these young women mostly are being brought into friend groups. So when we say friend groups, LGBT affirming groups, mostly in our schools, these kids are vulnerable. 63% of them have already been diagnosed with mental illness or neurodevelopmental issues. So these are vulnerable children coming into these groups who are then being told, because they kind of start saying, well, maybe I'm not a girl. They start questioning. And so they are encouraged to try life as a boy or as a girl, whatever the other gender is. And once they begin that and they go on to a very regimented regime of hormones, it's very quick. And for girls, double mastectomies ASAP are recommended. And parents are told that they are transphobic, homophobic, all those things, and toxic to their children if they do not affirm these children's ideologies. Confused, mentally ill children are targeted, and any other vulnerable groups. So it's really, really hard, really sad. I'm just going to go quickly through here because I want to give David lots of time. I already talked about that. Although the trans community will say that once the child has affirming parents, that things settle down, well, that probably is true. If your teenager wants to move their boyfriend into their home and you say no, they're going to be upset with you, aren't they? But when you say, sure, go ahead, then everything is smooth. Parents need to stand up and be parents again and say no to their children. And this is nothing more than saying, you know, this is not a good idea. Yesterday, you were fine being a princess. Today, you want to be a boy. There's something wrong with this. So we need to understand that actually, parents who do not affirm their children, those relationships begin to deteriorate. And one of the things that is coming out and we've seen is that these children that are now wanting to be trans are very filled with anger, and they are being programmed by different websites and these groups to really fight their parents on this. It is, let's say this, hell for these parents. It is hell. And there are parent groups starting to rise up. One is Fourth Wave Now. That's on a website. Check it out. Parent groups where they are starting to speak out and they're starting to talk about those things. So this is the next phenomenon. Some of you may have seen this. This is a couple. So they were a lesbian couple. I don't know. I think this is a biological child, a boy. So they were a lesbian couple. No, sorry, a girl. And now both of them have decided to transition. The boy is about 6 now. So they've been transitioning most of his life. But first they were 2 moms. Now they're mom and dad. They say their son is totally well adjusted. People are buying this stuff. This child, sure, he has a smile on his face. My kids has smiles on their faces because they put on a face, right, to go to school and live in the community, and home there was hell happening. So don't tell me because a kid smiles they're well adjusted. There's a whole lot of stuff under there that's not good. This is coming. And then I have some of these. Actually, I haven't. I just have 3 or 4 copies. But if you, as pastors and leaders, want to start stepping out and having your views known, one of the best ways is to contact school boards. There's Lisa Thompson. She is a new Minister of Education. You need to speak or write an email. Those kind of things, they're pretty non-committal in some ways. You're just speaking what you think, and have a voice. We need to have a voice. So I'm not going to share any more today. Lots I could talk about, but I want to call my son up. He's got lots to share, and this is really exciting because he, when he sent me the slides that he's doing, I was so excited because he is coming from this whole perspective from the political and legal side. So you're going to learn some new information that you may not have been aware of, and you're going to take it away, David? Are we friends? Oh, you didn't answer.
All right, how is everybody doing today? I'm a little nervous. Still haven't gotten over my speaking in front of crowd jitters yet. Okay, so let me see. I'm controlling the slides today because I don't know how fast I have to go. This is new content for me. So first, I'll tell you a little bit about my story because my mom gave me more time. So I appreciate that. Thanks, Mom. First time ever. All right. Laura Lynn was talking about a specific group of people that are attracted to transgender individuals. After high school, I fell into a crowd who liked to use drugs, and they liked to party, and we would go to Toronto, and we would party in the clubs, and I made a lot of friends in the gay community, and in doing that, I opened up, between the drugs and opening my relationships up to a crowd of people that I don't know, and maybe shouldn't have trusted. I very quickly became a part of this community. And one night I was out and I met a girl and we, I guess you would call it, messed around, kissed in the bar and spent the evening together. My gay friends came to me at the end of the evening and said to me, "You want to know something? That's not a girl. That's a man." And I, coming from a small farming community up in Grey County, had never experienced something like this. So this was, it busted, it blew my mind. It was like, poof. And it took me a few weeks to wrap my mind around it. And I talked to my gay friends and they're like, "No, you're not gay. Gay people, they like the same sex. This person is transgender, they look like a woman, act like a woman, and that's all they desire. So we consider them women." So I was pretty impressionable. At 19 years of age, I was like, okay, maybe I'm willing to let go of everything my parents taught me and what I have been taught in school because it's new and it's fun and everybody is accepting of this. So I, for the next 10 years of my life, dated cisgendered women, which are biological women, and women who were transgender, so men, interchangeably. So I didn't consider. But God has stepped into my life a few times. I've walked away, and God's come into my life and said, "Here's a line," and I come up against it, and then my life changes. And at one point, this happened, and I started looking into this lifestyle, and I realized that I needed to make some changes. I began to realize that I was actually practicing homosexuality, and I am very much uncomfortable with that. But it's hard to understand because my dad, my real biological father, abused us when we were children. And I understood that, and I wanted to be as far away personally, sexually, from homosexual as I could be. And yet here I was living the lifestyle. So that broke me again. So first time it happened, that really shattered my whole worldview. And then God brought it home again, and it shattered my worldview again. And I started back on the journey. And there was a point 3 years ago where I had started PTSD counseling because I didn't remember the things I remembered the physical abuse and I remember some of the pain, but there was a whole chunks of my life before the age of 12 that I didn't remember at all. And I started counseling for it. I was in my first secure attached relationship other than my parents. And that all again, and God just led me through that, and things opened up, and all of a sudden I had all these memories. And this ties in closely to God, where God's been leading me, because when I was young, I thought this was a representation of the Father's love. I thought my dad loved me because of the sexual abuse. I didn't understand that. I thought that that was a representation of how a father truly loves his son. So you can see how invasive and how easy it is to twist a mind at that age. And even when I was 19 years old, I was willing to let go of what I had been taught and what I believed, because there was so much acceptance available to me as a person I've always struggled with my sexuality, and this group of people took me in and said it's okay. Now, thankfully, this group of people does the same thing, and they do it right. So I'm on the right course. I'm married. I have 4 kids who keep me awake at night still. But I love it, and my wife has supported me through all of this journey, and this one that we're doing now. This is a scary thing, because we're in an age where, and I will show when I touch on it, we'll go through lots of stuff. We're in an age where it's a short step from speaking your mind to being put in jail. And this is Canada. So it's hard to believe. But the laws are already in place that will, if you speak your mind in a very specific way and you refuse to change your views, it's like 4 steps to going to jail now. So let me get started on that. I'm gonna, there we go, read a quote to you. This is an excerpt from a decision made by the Superior Court in 1984, and then it was reiterated in 1989. Anything that forces someone to express opinions that are not their own is a penalty that is okay. Thank you. And as such, is alien to the tradition of free nations like Canada, even for the repression of the most serious crimes. So we should be able to speak. This statement was made saying that we should be able to speak about things without anybody coming against us. It should be allowed, open forum. With this statement, the Supreme Court of Canada set down a basic principle that any government action or legislation which has the effect of forcing its citizens to mouth thoughts or opinions that are not their own is unconstitutional. So this is already something that the Supreme Court has made a decision on and has put in the books. So this is written down, and this is constitutional. So anything that forces you to express views that aren't your own, or to not express your own views, is unconstitutional. All right, we'll get started on the slideshow. Okay, so Bill 33. I broke this down off a website called ARPA Canada. You may have heard of it. I will leave it at the end of my slides. There's 4 resources that I use for this. I'll leave it up so you can take a picture of it. We'll also have the slideshows available on my mother's website, so if you come out afterwards, we can talk to you about it, so that you can too go through all the resources that I use. And I invite you to do so, because you need to understand exactly what's going on, exactly what's happened under the radar without your understanding in Canada over the last 5 to 10 years. Okay, so Bill 33, inadvertently I put question marks here. It stripped the rights of Ontario women. So this is the bill that made trans rights in things like bathrooms. I know some of you have heard these conversations already. You've seen posts about this. So now we can't expel a person from a bathroom if they identify by the sex on the door. So if it's a women's bathroom and there's a man in the bathroom and people are uncomfortable, we can't expel them because they identify as a woman. So this is trampled directly on women's rights. So now trans rights supersede women's rights. Specifically, it's an attack directly on women's rights. So the feminist movement is up in arms about this, and they have already posted lots of media about it, because we fought for 100 years for these rights for women to become reality. And all of a sudden, within 5 years, it's been erased. So 100 years of hard work by the people of Canada and North America, and a lot of the Western world as well, has all of a sudden been superseded by sex ideology, transgender ideology. And Laura Lynn talked about this a little bit as well. So these are the 4 points where it hits us. And I will let you know that the platform that they used for the gender-related sex studies that they used to build the curriculum that was sort of just been pushed back, rolled back a little bit, that came in 2015. Bill 33 is one of those bills that they use as a platform, and the next bill as well, to develop their curriculum. So they use Kinsey's research, and these 2 bills, which were already in 2012, they had gone under the radar. Nobody they just sort of, through they go. All right, Bill 13, 2012 as well, introduced compelled Catholic schools as well as public schools to share gender ideology in schools. They have to promote and organize and make available support for the Gay Straight Alliance clubs and any transgender or LGBTQ club-related functions. This added a layer of identity expression to the anti-bullying legislation. And let me make you understand something. Every one of these bills that foists a specific law to cover the transgender rights is completely unnecessary. Before any of these bills were introduced, it was transgender folks had the exact same rights as we did, and they could bring out anything to human rights, the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal, and they successfully fought under the old Human Rights Code. They successfully fought and won many cases. So it's already, there was already, the rights that we had were already enough. But now, the rights that they have created supersede all of our rights, both as individuals and as parents, as we'll see in the next few slides. Here's the concerns. It also elevates the state over the individual, so the state has more power in decision making than you do about your own life and your children's life. It put in precedent a place for teaching ideology over science. And that's a scary thing. When science, which has been proven through whatever means they use, empirically gathered data, following the scientific method, so it's been in our books for years, and all of a sudden it's invalidated because gender ideology is here and science is here. So fields are here, facts are here. This is more important. And now that's in place that they can remove children from homes if you don't align with this ideology. It also, and I know there's been some media on this as well, and I don't know if you've seen it, but parents who don't align with this ideology are restricted from adopting or fostering children. So, and that, I say these things take them with a grain of salt, because as we'll find out, it really depends on who the person is that you're working with. So if it's a Christian that is working in the Children Aid Society and helping you, likely that it will go through. But if it's somebody from the other communities who has a different worldview, that will reflect negatively, and they can stop the process like that. They can reverse the process too if they find out later that you don't teach your kids that trans is a real thing. They can take the kids away from you. And that is, for me, it's scary. I have a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And 2 of them are in school. And I mean, my mom spoke about it. She said that I had already had a book come home in junior kindergarten last year, the 10,000 Dresses book. That next day, I took that book back. I took 3 of my mother's books back to the school, and I sat the vice principal down and I said, we need to have a conversation. And we had a great conversation, and I left the book with him, and I left the book with each of my children's teachers. Thankfully, both of them are from the Dutch Reformed Church locally. So there is a lot of people in your school that are protecting your children, but it's not enough. Because somewhere along the line, they're going to come to a teacher who is bringing in drag queens, whose ideology does not align with anything that's healthy even, let alone ours. And the last statement there, there's a gentleman, where am I here? In Hamilton, there was a court case where a father asked to, and I see even the people nodding your heads. So this bill was used by the school board to deny the parent their rights to remove the child from school. Now, he's appealing it right now, but it doesn't look like he's going to win that one either. And the previous government in Ontario had threatened him with footing the bill for all the parliamentary lawyers that were involved. So it's basically a gag order. If you're going to bring this to court and you don't win, you're going to pay the $1.2 million that it costs to defend our position. So it's not just the law, but they're bullying people into believing, or people into bowing. We'll use that one because that's true. They're trying to make you bow, and they're bullying. So it's a very scary thing. I mean, this research actually brought me to tears. I didn't think we were here. I thought we were going there. But I didn't realize until I did this research that we're here, and now we have to fight uphill. So thanks for bearing with me. It's very close to my heart. Okay, so Bill 77 in 2017 banned reparative therapy, and I know my mom talked about this a bit. What's scary about that is it's the only, and I would call it affirmation therapy. They're stealing our words. They're taking our language from us, they're turning it around, and they're trying to soften the impact of things that are truly horrifying by taking our language from us. So they banned affirmation therapy. That's what I'm going to call it, not reparative therapy, because there's nothing, we are trying to fix something, but it's something that we're trying to affirm as well. That your sex is a healthy thing. And to try to be something that you cannot become is never going to end well. Did I just turn it off? Okay, good. Thank you. This bill is very concerning because I don't even know where my notes are. I apologize. Yeah, so it dictates medical policy where political correctness supersedes scientific fact. It outlawed, and I said this already, the only effective methods, and I use the word methods. Mom will say one, that it's the only effective method. I'll say there's more than one in the sense that there's a few different models of psychological counseling that will help a child affirm their biological sex. So there's more than one psychological model. So it is the only effective methods that they can use. And it effectively stripped parents in Ontario of any viable means to support their children. Bill 28 removed the words mother and father. Another bill, this one's 2016, removed the words mother and father from Ontario law. So nowhere in Ontario law you will find mother and father anymore. I know that doesn't really sound scary. It's okay, parental figure, we can deal with it. But all of these things line up, and we'll see how it becomes something that's maybe even dangerous when I get to the Bill C-16 at a federal level. But take mother and father out, and for me this is relevant. I took my kids, registered them last year. No mother and father. No mom, dad. How are you related to the child? No mother and father on there. There were 6 options. I crossed them all out. I'm the father. But it's there already. And then this other one that was attached to the bill, polyamory and polygamy. So it allows up to 4 unrelated people to the child to become parents, basically what it does. So it allows a family group that is not a sound family group. The nuclear family is actually like the model that is the most effective, so man, woman, children, and has proven throughout history to be the most effective model for raising your child, is now under direct attack. There you go. And this is another bill that further increases the power of the state over your children. And we were talking about pedophilia. Now there's polygamy as well. So I don't think pedophilia will come first. I think they'll hit polygamy first. So multiple parents in a marriage raising children. I think that will be the next one that comes through. This has already been arranged. It's already there in Ontario legislation. There's already provision for it. So that one's first, and they're doing it step by step. It's like a marching forward. Here's our agenda. Now, and you maybe didn't see it before, but it's very concerning. And then most recently, 2017, Bill 89. Has everybody heard about this one? No? Oh, wow. Okay. So it prioritizes equality, and I use this statement, or the state's view of what equality demands, over the freedom of conscience, religion, and expression. So, and both of the speakers today have said it, and they've said it well. Gender, or your sexual identity, is more important than freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, and its law. It's already in Ontario legislature. So it's already law. That gets me a little bit angry. Also, this is the bill that has come into the home. This is the bill that allows them to take your children away if they so desire. So they had made the platform for it with the other bills coming along. This one, now, for sure, if you stand your ground, this is the one that makes it scary. Because all those things that applied to businesses and agencies now have been applied to the family and parental units. Now we are under law responsible for teaching our children gender ideology. If we don't, and the wrong person catches wind, the process is in place to take your children away. So it's already there. It will be considered abuse. if you don't do what I just said. If you don't teach your kids about gender ideology. And it's already in place, the fostering and adoption process. It's already in place, and it's just a matter of the right person at the right, or the wrong person at the wrong time, and you will be stopped in your tracks. Oh, and this is one that we all need to understand. Religious faith is no longer a consideration in the human charter. It's still there, but it's so low as to be non-existent for us. It's still written in the charter, but the Superior Court gets to interpret the charter the way they want to, and they have prioritized your sexual orientation, your sexual identity, way up here. And this is religious identity, religious freedom, way down here. Parents are no longer the decision maker. If you push it, you'll be in trouble. Yeah, that right is no longer ours to decide what is healthy for our children. That is the state's right now. It's already done. So we have things in front of us that are very important for us to stand up and fix. It is us. It is the church that is going to start this rise. They're going to start this stand. It is important for us to, now that we understand, we have the theological side of it. We all probably very close to the same page on that. My mother, Dr. Ann, she brought the scientific side of things. And now we have a little bit more legal understanding. And I challenge you, all of you, to actually take this information and go research it and understand it better for yourself. I may have missed something. There's more out there. These are the ones that I was directed to by somebody at ARPA. And they're very important to us. All right, so now we have a troubling convergence. So by themselves, all those 5 bills that have come in, and those are passed through now. Those are all in Ontario law. Now we have what's called wedge politics happening. So by themselves, they're not as sinister as I have made them out to be today. But everybody's heard about this one, right? The transgender bill, they called it. Now they call Bill C-13 the transgender bill as well, and Bill 33. So this is the only one that really hit the spotlight because people like Jordan Peterson spoke out about it, because it is a very short distance from being something that is innocuous to being something that restricts freedom of speech. But it's bigger than that. So what happened with Bill C-16, it added certain things to the Charter of Rights for harassment and bullying laws that were things like nomenclature, changes in wording and stuff like that, adding gender identity and expression, those things. But it also did this. It prohibits hate propaganda against these groups. It's supposed to it's very specific in its wording, but we already have this in place. Hate propaganda is it's not allowed in Canada already. So it's a completely unnecessary provision. The other thing that it did is it clarified the sentencing. It increased both the duration and intensity of whatever punishments that the courts choose to mete out on the public who might go up against this. So it's okay. So we have these 5 provincial laws. We have this new law that increases the punishment for doing any of these things. And then the government says this: due to the fluidity of gender fluidity, the terminology that is around gender fluidity, and what the understanding of it is, they leave it up to the Human Rights Commission of each province to define what that means and set up the laws. So the federal government has said it's up to Ontario, BC, Alberta, any of the provinces and territories to define this, and then we will back up we will enforce it with our higher punishments. So in Ontario, we are lucky that, no we're not. We actually have the worst laws attached to this. It is considered immediately harassment and discrimination if you don't use the gender pronouns the first time. So if you meet somebody that's trans and you have no idea and you use that gender pronoun with them, that is like him or her or he or she, and they become offended, not only do they not have to tell you, oh, I hit it again, sorry about that. But they can go to the Human Rights Tribunal and bring you in without you knowing that you've offended anybody, without talking to you about it, and they don't even have to introduce their proper gender and pronoun. So again, this is up to the Human Rights Tribunal to walk through, but the laws are already in place that if they so decide, then there's very negative consequences that can happen. You need a drink. This is a very dry material. Sorry about that. All right, so to make you understand how these two pieces work together and what wedge politics is so basically we have all these sort of innocuous laws. They're a little worrisome at a provincial level, but then the federal government passes a law, and now we're wedged into a corner. So that's why it's called wedge politics. So the Ontario Human Rights Commission, when a tribunal is held, they can give monetary or non-monetary punishments. So basically, they can do fines, or they can do orders of community service. They can do orders of retraining, like gender bias training, harassment training, abuse training. They can dictate the terms of that. And then if you can do all that, but if you don't change your stand, this next step is really crazy, because the Human Rights Tribunal, the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal, when they make a decision, it is a superior court decision. So they have the same power, the same executive power as the Superior Court, which means indefinite imprisonment if you breach the order. They can put you in jail without any comment to the press or anything. They just put you in bail and leave you there as long as they feel they want to. And then they can do fines and penalties, whatever those are. I'm not privy to them. There's a great deal of more information there that is hard to work through. But that by itself is scary. And just so you understand, I started with the quote from the Supreme Court done in 1984. Things have changed. The Supreme Court is not what it once was. It has been invaded. It has been annexed almost by people that are behind this ideology. So it would be okay. We could maybe work with it if it wasn't, if they were still following the same principles they were before. But since the person that is running the Supreme Court, whatever court you're in, whatever judge you have, gets to interpret the human rights code the way they want to, it is entirely dependent on the person that you get in your case. So is that a scary thing? Does that shake you a little bit? If you end up with a transgender activist who is a Superior Court judge, it's going to go badly because the law is already in place. And again, we talk about they can remove children from homes, they can interfere with the process of fostering and adoption. So parental rights in Ontario, try right now to exercise them, and we will be facing a hard battle. I don't know, I didn't do any research on the other provinces because there was so much on Ontario that I needed to touch on. It's really relevant to us. But I do know that Ontario has the most strict interpretation already of this particular Bill C-16. All right, and again, I've talked about it before, but the things that are on the chopping block are religion, freedom of expression, and speech. So family is under dire attack. Today we may have come to, this is more of a full circle in your understanding now. So we've been hearing about this stuff. I know that some of you have been to some of our other meetings and we have spoken and you've heard other people speak about it. This may have been something that is completely new to you. So now we understand that this is already locked down. Now we have our fight out in front of us. Now we know what to do, that we have to do. And it is specifically directed at people who are religious or who are from the scientific community who stand up and speak truth. So all of these bills are that's who they're focused on. So they want to shut people down from talking about it, from being even curious about it. They just want to create fear. And I have done that. There's so many people in my own life. As soon as I started the last 2 years working through this and started posting fact and truth about this, I lost half my friends. Immediately, I lost half my friends. Because people are afraid. And the rest of them will not speak about it. I don't have a single friend, Christian or otherwise, on my friends list, and there's a few of you on my friends list that are rather new over the last year. I will not include you, but all my friends that I've had for long term will not talk about it, will not stand, and are afraid. And we can't afford that. So what can I do? The first thing that we need to do, as Christians, we've kind of let it ride. And I hear that there's apathy here and from coast to coast. What are we dealing with? Apathy. That's true. And it reflects both in the church and at a political level. Because do you really know who you're voting for? Do you do the research that you need to do to understand what's going to happen when you vote them in? What their agenda is. They have a platform that they tell you outright. But how many of the politicians that you have voted in have stuck really tightly to the platform? And how many have followed an agenda that seems completely divergent from the platform that they ran on? Yes? It's a reality. So we need to understand who that person is we're voting in and why we're voting them in, and then we need to hold them to it. So we need to do our homework as parents, as grandparents, as any person in this room, and any friend that you might talk to this about. We need to do due diligence, and we need to use critical thinking, because what's happened is we haven't done that for years. Canada is a wonderful place to live, and we let it ride. Hey, what could happen in Canada? Surprise, surprise, it's already done. We missed it. We had opportunities to fight these bills many times over the last 5 years, and they snuck under the radar. And that's on us. Really, it is. We've thought, what could possibly happen in Canada? We're like a God-fearing Christian country. You know, things are changing a little bit, but we can let it ride. But it's not true anymore. So we need to stand up. We need to talk to our members of parliament. We need to talk to the ombudsman. We need to do everything we can and learn everything we can to make good decisions about politics going forward. All right. So this is my ending quote, and this is a man that I have a fair amount of respect for. His name's John Diefenbaker. And this is what he said in the 1960s, I believe. Anybody remember him? Yeah? So did anybody agree with his way of politics? Well, he said this: if Parliament is to be preserved as a living institution, His Majesty's loyal opposition, now it's Her Majesty's, right? It's supposed to be Her Majesty's, will fearlessly perform its functions. When it properly discharges them, the preservation of our freedom is assured. The reading of history proves that freedom always dies when criticism ends. And this is the challenge that we're having to walk out in. We need to be critical. We need to be standing up. The opposition finds fault. It suggests amendments. It asks questions. It elicits information. It arouses. It educates. It molds public opinion by voice and by vote. That's us. We need, if we vote somebody in and they don't become the Prime Minister of Canada, they become the opposition, we need to still push them to fight for us. They're there because of us. They need to fight for us. Okay, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you very much. Thanks for bearing with me.